"We heard you bought a place in Vale," my daughter-in-law said as she shoved 2 cream-colored suitcases across my threshold. "So we decided to come stay. Fresh start, no grudges. Family should let things go." Vanessa Bell spoke as though she were granting me mercy instead of arriving uninvited after 3 years of silence. I was 65, recently retired, and no longer impressed by people who confused confidence with ownership. I stepped aside, folded my hands over my wool cardigan, and smiled. "Of course, come in." My son, Daniel, followed her with another stack of luggage. He did not hug me. He barely looked up. Snow clung to his expensive boots, melting into dark spots on the slate floor. The last time Daniel called, he asked what I planned to do with the money from selling my restaurant company. When I refused to discuss it, he disappeared. No birthdays, holidays, or message when I moved to the mountains. Now he stood inside my new home, carrying enough luggage for a season. Vanessa strode toward the great room, already scanning the windows, ceiling beams, and stone fireplace with a satisfied expression. I knew what she expected: leather sofas, cashmere throws, a wet bar, and guest suites with heated floors. She stopped so abruptly that Daniel nearly walked into her. The great room had no sofas, no rugs, no television. Stainless steel tables ran in precise rows beneath suspended grow lights. Metal racks climbed toward the rafters, packed with trays of orchids, seedling plugs, nutrient tanks, and misting lines. Fans whispered near the ceiling. Timers blinked along the wall. A narrow path curved through the equipment toward the kitchen. I had turned almost the entire first floor into a climate-controlled commercial orchid nursery. Vanessa stared at the purple and white blooms as if they had personally insulted her. "What is this?" "My new business." "Where is the furniture?" I pointed toward a shallow alcove beside a tower of coconut coir bricks. A small love seat sat there beneath a folded gray blanket. "That opens into a bed." Daniel looked past me toward the hallway leading to my private suite. "You only have one bedroom?" "I have one finished bedroom. The other rooms are storage, propagation, and packing." Vanessa dropped the handle of her suitcase. "You bought a $5 million house and filled it with plants?" "I bought a property with the light exposure, water capacity, and floor load I needed." "For orchids?" "For my life." "We'll sort this out tomorrow," she said. "We're exhausted." I showed them the pull-out mattress, the bathroom near the mudroom, and the cabinet where I kept spare towels. Then I walked to my hallway, pressed my thumb to the biometric lock, and stepped into my private wing. Behind my locked door waited a warm bedroom, a bathtub, and a sitting room overlooking the valley. I had designed that comfort for myself, not for relatives who rediscovered me after reading about my fortune. That night, beneath my quilt, I heard Vanessa complain that the pull-out mattress was criminal, and Daniel promised to talk sense into me. The nursery fans hummed me to sleep. At 6 the next morning, the outdoor temperature was 19 degrees. I made coffee, warmed a croissant, and sat at the kitchen island while pale light spread across the snow. Vanessa appeared wearing 3 blankets over silk pajamas. "Miriam, the heat is broken." "It is working." "It's 55 degrees out there." 54, actually." Her face tightened. "That is not indoor heat. That is refrigeration." "It is the winter resting temperature for several varieties I'm forcing for spring bloom. The private wing is on a separate system. The nursery zone stays cool overnight." Daniel shuffled in behind her, rubbing his arms. "Mom, can't you raise it while we're here?" "No. Just a few degrees." "The plants are sensitive." Vanessa laughed once without humor. "We are people." Daniel leaned against the island. "Could we sleep in your room? You could use the love seat. You always said you slept anywhere during the restaurant years." When Daniel was 8, I slept upright beside his hospital bed for 4 nights. At 16, I drove through a blizzard to rescue him after a breakup. At 27, I mortgaged a restaurant to save him from a reckless investment. "My room is not available," I said. "There's an outdoor store in town. Buy thermal underwear." Vanessa set her jaw. "We are your guests." "No, guests are invited." I finished my coffee and carried the cup to the sink. "You are family members who arrived without notice. I am choosing not to turn you away. Do not confuse generosity with surrender." That afternoon, I watched Vanessa tap the thermostat screen. I had locked the controls from my phone after one costly crop failure, taught me to protect every system from casual hands. By the third morning, hunger had replaced cold as Vanessa's main complaint. I returned from a walk to find every cabinet door open. She stood in the center of the kitchen holding a can of tuna like evidence in a trial. "Where is the food?" "In the cabinets." "This is not food. It's oatmeal, bread, lentils, soup, peanut butter, and canned fish." "That is food." "Daniel said you used to make breakfast skillets. Potatoes, sausage, peppers, eggs." "I remember." "Well," I crossed to the walk-in refrigerator and entered my code. The heavy door released with a click. Cold light spilled over shelves of berries, farm eggs, artisan cheese, marinated lamb, fresh herbs, and prepared meals labeled by date. I took out 2 eggs, a slice of rye bread, and a small jar of butter. Then I closed the door. The lock engaged with a solid metallic sound. Her mouth fell open. "You lock your groceries?" "I lock anything expensive that supports a schedule. Some ingredients are for clients, others are portioned for me." "You have enough food for 20 people." "I also have enough soil for 10,000 orchids. That does not make it communal." Daniel entered as butter melted in my pan. "That smells amazing." "The oatmeal is on the second shelf," I said. He smiled weakly. "Come on, Mom." "You know how to cook." "We're under a lot of stress." "So was I during the years I fed 300 diners a night and still packed your school lunch." Vanessa slapped the tuna onto the counter. "This is humiliation." "No, humiliation is calling my catering van cheap after I paid for your wedding meal. This is breakfast." My truck became the next battlefield. My winterized 4-wheel drive pickup was the only vehicle on the property, and Daniel quickly noticed its key fob. "We're going into town," he said. "Can we take it?" I handed him the fob. His surprise nearly made me laugh. He grabbed his coat, called for Vanessa, and hurried outside before I could change my mind. The garage door rose. The truck doors slammed. The engine clicked, coughed, and went silent. Daniel tried again, then again. 10 minutes later, he stormed back into the house. "The battery is dead." Vanessa came in behind him wearing a white parka and heeled boots. "Then give us another car." "I only own one. How are we supposed to get anywhere?" "The county bus stops near the highway." Daniel stared toward the long snow-covered drive. "That's almost 2 miles." 1.8. Before dawn, I had disconnected the battery and removed the ignition relay. My insurance did not cover him, and I wanted to see how long affection survived once convenience disappeared. They spent the day whispering behind the plants. The house had excellent internet. What they lacked was access to my accounts. I confirmed that suspicion on the 5th afternoon. I was trimming roots in the propagation room when the camera alert appeared on my phone. Motion detected, office. I removed my gloves and walked quietly through the service corridor. My office door stood open. Vanessa was behind my desk, pulling folders from the bottom drawer. Daniel stood near the window. "This is a bad idea," he whispered. "She hides everything," Vanessa said. "We need to know what she did with the sale money." "We can ask." "We did ask. She offered you oatmeal." Vanessa opened a red folder marked Estate and Property. She scanned the first page, then the second. Her confidence drained line by line. I had planted that folder after Daniel's first text in 3 years mentioned visiting. It held reverse mortgage brochures, charitable trust forms, and a draft leaving the house to the Rocky Mountain Wolf Recovery Alliance. In my own handwriting, I had added 3 notes. Confirm heirs cannot challenge. Liquidate personal property, no family exceptions. I shifted my weight so the floorboard creaked. "Looking for something?" I asked. "A pen," Vanessa said too quickly. I needed a pen. I reached into the pencil cup, selected a cheap hotel pen, and held it out. "Here." "I'd appreciate it if you kept the estate papers in order," I added. "I'm finalizing my legacy." Daniel glanced at the wolf brochure. "You're leaving everything to an animal charity?" "Wolves understand territory." "They also understand what happens when strangers cross a boundary," I said. Daniel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I returned to the nursery and let them argue in whispers for the rest of the evening. The documents were decoys. My real will was in my attorney's vault. Most of my estate would fund employee scholarships, culinary training for women rebuilding their lives, and botanical research. Daniel had only a restricted trust for education, therapy, or medical care, no cash or property. I was not acting from spite. Years of rescue had become the reason he never changed. Vanessa recovered quickly. When money became uncertain, status became her next target. On Saturday morning, she announced that she had invited 3 local couples to dinner. "I met them at a gallery opening online," she said, arranging my wine glasses on the only dining table left in the house. "One owns a venture fund. Another develops luxury hotels. This could be important for Daniel's consulting company." "What consulting company?" "The one we are launching." Daniel looked away. Vanessa continued, "I told them this was our family home. I said you were staying here while you transitioned into assisted living." For a moment, even I was impressed. Assisted living? It sounded simpler than explaining all this. She gestured toward the nursery. "Please don't embarrass us." I folded a towel and set it beside the sink. "Your party, your responsibility." She mistook my calm for permission. All afternoon she cooked on credit, covered shelves with sheets, and lit candles to hide the nursery smell. Daniel polished glasses and rehearsed phrases about market strategy. At 6:30, a diesel engine groaned up the driveway. Vanessa froze. A commercial dump truck backed toward the front walk. I put on my coat and went outside to meet it. The driver lowered his window. 3 tons of composted horse manure for Hale Alpine Botanicals? "That's mine." Vanessa ran onto the porch. "Miriam, stop him." I signed the delivery form. The truck bed rose. A dark, steaming mountain of compost slid onto the gravel with a roar, blocking the main path and releasing a smell so powerful it seemed to stain the air. Vanessa covered her nose with a linen napkin. "You did this on purpose. The delivery was scheduled weeks ago. You could have changed it. So could you if it were your house." At 7, a black SUV slowed near the manure pile, lowered a window, then reversed. The next 2 vehicles followed without their occupants stepping out. Vanessa stood beneath the porch light in a green cocktail dress, surrounded by candles, roast lamb, and defeat. Inside, Daniel poured himself wine. "You ruined everything," she said. I removed my gloves. "No, I delivered fertilizer to my business. You built a lie in its path." The argument that followed stripped away the last layer of politeness. Daniel cornered me in the kitchen the next morning. His eyes were bruised with exhaustion. He planted both hands on the island. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Vanessa and I are in trouble." "What kind?" He glanced toward the living room, where she sat beneath a blanket scrolling through her phone. "Credit cards, back taxes, a loan from her father. We thought the consulting firm could fix it, but we need startup capital." "How much?" $50,000. Vanessa called from the other room. "That is not a lot to you." Daniel lowered his voice. "Mom, you sold Hale Hospitality for more than $40 million. $50,000 is nothing." I opened a drawer and removed a canvas apron, rubber boots, and work gloves. He stared at them. "What is that?" "A job." I pointed toward the nursery. "The western irrigation lines need flushing. 400 trays need moving. The compost has to be spread, and the delivery area has to be cleaned. 12 hours today, another 12 tomorrow. I'll pay $20 an hour." His expression changed from confusion to insult. "You want me to shovel manure?" "I want you to earn money." "I'm your son." "Yes." "You paid strangers more than that when you owned restaurants." "I paid trained kitchen managers more. Dishwashers started near that rate, and most worked harder than you ever have." Vanessa stood. "You are being cruel." I looked at her. Cruel was calling me cheap after I paid for your wedding, then keeping Daniel away because my apartment looked modest online. Cruel was disappearing when you thought I might leave my company to employees. Daniel's face reddened. "That's not fair." I kept every message. Silence spread through the kitchen. I set the gloves on the island. "The work is available, the gift is not." He pushed the apron away. I'm not your laborer. No, you are a 40-year-old man who came to his mother's home asking for money and refusing work. Vanessa stepped closer. We deserve respect. Respect is not an inheritance. She knocked the gloves to the floor. I returned the gloves to the drawer. The gift is gone. The work remains. That afternoon, anger made her careless. I was in the east room, checking humidity, when I heard something heavy scrape across the hallway. I followed the sound and found Vanessa beside the back door with a cardboard box. Inside were 6 pieces of pottery my mother had brought from Oaxaca. A blue bowl, a red pitcher, 3 vases, and a wide platter marked by its maker's thumbprint. They were priceless to me. Vanessa lifted the blue bowl from the alcove shelf. "What are you doing?" I asked. "These are in the way." "Of what?" "My coats. We need storage." "You packed my mother's pottery so you could hang coats?" "We live here now, Miriam." The words settled between us. I had wondered when she would say it plainly. I walked to the shelf and touched the empty place where the platter had rested. "Put everything back." "No." Daniel appeared at the end of the hall. "Vanessa, maybe don't." She turned on him. "You said she would calm down. You said once we were here she would act like a mother." I looked at my son. "Is that what you told her?" He rubbed his forehead. "We thought if we stayed for a while you would see that helping us made sense." "How long is a while?" He did not answer. Vanessa did. "Until we get stable." I almost smiled. "You mean until I die?" Daniel flinched. "Mom." "You searched my office. You claimed my house. You told strangers I was senile. Now you are removing my belongings." Vanessa gripped the bowl tighter. "You are overreacting." I reached for my phone and photographed the box, the empty shelf, and the bowl in her hands. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Documenting." Her face changed. I called my attorney from the hallway. I did not leave a dramatic message. I simply said, "Grace, the guests we discussed have crossed the line. Please send the notice and call the sheriff's non-emergency desk." Daniel stared at me. "Notice?" I had one prepared. Vanessa put the bowl back. Within an hour, my attorney emailed a formal notice. They were temporary guests, not tenants, and permission to remain ended at 6. I printed 2 copies and handed them over. Vanessa tore hers in half. Daniel read his, twice. "You planned this," he said. "I prepared for it." "You expected us to fail?" "I expected you to reveal your intentions." He looked toward the nursery, then back at me. "What if I take the job?" I studied his face. For the first time since arriving, he looked frightened rather than offended. "The offer was real," I said. "But it was not rent. Working 2 days would not give you the right to stay." "So that's it?" "That depends on what you mean. If you mean, will I hand you $50,000 and let Vanessa move my mother's things, then yes, that is over." He lowered his eyes. At 4, they walked down to the gas station to buy food and call for a ride. They took only their coats and phones, perhaps assuming I would soften before nightfall. I did not. I packed their belongings without damage, photographed every item, and moved the bags into the dry equipment shed near the drive, directly beneath a security camera. I restored my mother's pottery to the alcove. Then I changed the keypad code, replaced the front lock cylinder, and secured the rear doors. At 5:20, Daniel and Vanessa appeared at the bottom of the drive, dragging themselves through deepening snow. The sky had turned violet behind the ridge. Wind lifted powder from the roof in silver sheets. Daniel tried his key. It did not turn. He tried again, then knocked. "Mom!" Vanessa shoved past him and hammered the door with both fists. "Miriam, open this door." I stood behind the glass. Daniel saw me first. "Please." I opened the small window beside the door by 2 inches. "The lock is changed," I said. Vanessa's face twisted. "You cannot lock us out." "Your permission to remain ended at 6. It is now 6:03. "Our things are inside. They are in the equipment shed. The door is unlocked. Your ride can collect you from the lower turnaround." Daniel looked down the drive. "The car service canceled because of the storm." "There is a heated bus shelter near the highway." "That's 2 miles. 1.8. Vanessa screamed my name. I held an envelope through the opening and released it. It landed on the porch between them. Daniel picked it up. Inside was the attorney's second notice, an inventory of their property, photographs of the stored bags, and the number for a local shuttle company. I had also included an invoice. 7 nights of lodging at $0, food at $0, damaged irrigation hose, $48, deep cleaning after unauthorized dinner party, $300, replacement wine glass, $26, total due, $374. At the bottom, I had written, "Payment accepted through honest work." Daniel read it and closed his eyes. Vanessa tore the invoice in half. "You are a monster." "No," I said. "I am no longer useful to you." Her mouth opened, but no words came. I looked at Daniel. "I loved you before you knew my name. I loved you when I was poor and when your mistakes cost me years of savings. But love is not permission, a deed, or a debit card." He began to cry. The sight hurt. I will not pretend it did not. Every instinct in me wanted to open the door, wrap him in a blanket, and make his problems mine again. That instinct had nearly destroyed us both. "I need help," he said. "Yes," I answered, "but not the kind you came here to take." I slid a card through the window with numbers for a financial counselor and a therapist who treated compulsive risk-taking. Both had agreed to see him. "I will pay them directly for 6 months," I said. "No cash and no room here. If you choose the work, I will support the work." Vanessa grabbed his arm. "We are not begging her." Daniel pulled away from her. It was a small movement, but I saw it. He looked at the card, then at me. "Do you mean it?" "Yes." Vanessa stared at him. "Daniel." He folded the card and placed it in his pocket. I shut the window and latched it. They hauled their luggage from the shed. A neighbor's plow driver finally took them to town for cash. I watched the taillights vanish, then turned off the porch light. The silence that followed did not feel empty. It felt restored. The next morning, sunlight flashed over the snow. I made eggs, toast, and fresh coffee. No one demanded my plate or discussed my death like a financial event. In the nursery, the first row of white orchids had begun to open. I moved from plant to plant, checking roots and adjusting stakes. Near the east glass wall, my neighbor Theo raised a hand from his snowblower. I waved back. At noon, my attorney called. "Your son contacted the counselor," Grace said. "He also asked whether the work offer still exists." I looked across the trays toward the compost pile outside. "It does," I said, "but he cannot stay here." I told him. And Vanessa? She was not on the call. 2 weeks later, Daniel returned alone. He arrived on the county bus wearing borrowed work boots and a faded coat. He did not bring luggage. He did not ask to come inside. I met him near the service entrance and handed him gloves. "The filters are clogged," I said. "The compost needs turning. Lunch is at noon. You'll be paid by check." He nodded. "Okay." He worked badly at first. His shoulders tired. He gagged at the manure. He complained once, caught himself, and stopped. By noon, his hands were blistered. I gave him soup and bread at the packing table. He looked toward the locked refrigerator, then at me. "The soup is good." "It is lentil." "I know." We ate without pretending the past had vanished. He told me Vanessa had gone to stay with her sister. He had learned their debts were worse than he knew, because she had hidden 2 cards, just as he had hidden his trading losses from her. They had built a marriage from matching secrets and called it ambition. "I kept thinking one big break would fix everything," he said. "One honest habit fixes more than one big break." He nodded. He returned the next day and finished the work. I paid him $480 before taxes, exactly as promised. He stared at the check. "That won't solve much," he said. "No." "But I earned it." "Yes." He folded it carefully. We did not reconcile because of 2 days in work gloves. Daniel returned to Denver, attended counseling, sold his luxury watch, closed his trading accounts, and found an inventory job. Vanessa filed for separation 3 months later. I only hoped they both learned before hurting more people. Daniel called every Sunday. He asked about the orchids without asking about the house and repaid the $374 in small installments. I said the invoice was symbolic. He said the repayment was not. By spring, my nursery shipped its first large order. I hired 2 local women and created a paid apprenticeship for former restaurant workers seeking quieter lives. The old great room filled with ivory, magenta, and gold. I updated my estate plan again. Daniel's restricted trust remained. The rest would support scholarships, training, and research. I was protecting us from the fantasy that love should arrive as unearned wealth. On the anniversary of that winter visit, Daniel came to help prepare plants for shipment. Before entering, he knocked on the service door. I opened it. "I brought lunch," he said, holding up a paper bag, "and I checked first." I stepped aside. He ignored my private hallway and the locked refrigerator. He placed lunch on the work table and waited until I invited him to sit. That was the closest thing to an apology I trusted. Outside, snow had begun to fall over the ridge. Inside, the nursery stayed at exactly the temperature the orchids needed. My mother's pottery rested safely in its alcove. The locks were strong. The boundaries were stronger. At 65, I finally understood that protecting my peace did not make me cold. It made room for every honest thing that still had a chance to grow.